Are you feeling a little lost or uninspired? Ready to add some serious sparkle to your life? Welcome to Coaching for Millennials, the podcast where we ditch the blah and say yes to your dreams. I'm your host, Jose Miguel Longo, a proud gay Hispanic husband, a dog dad, and a social justice warrior. For over a decade, I've been a career and life coach, helping folks like you uncover their passion and write their own career stories. Whether you're a Gen Xer, a Gen Y, or a Gen Z, this is your go-to guide for crafting a killer resume, finding your calling, and taking charge of your life. We'll dive deep and hold each other accountable and build a roadmap that leads you to a life that truly lights you up. So if you're ready to turn your fantasy into reality, tune in. It's time to unleash your passion because your purpose is waiting. This is Coaching for Millennials, and we're about to make some serious magic happen. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Coaching for Millennials. I am your host, Jose Miguel Longo. I am so excited to be back here with another episode for you. And this is actually the last and final episode of our mini-series, Unstuck and Focused, which is based off of a free guide that I created for folks to use to help them get really what it's called in the title, Unstuck and Focused. And I designed this guide with the intention of helping people gain clarity, gain an opportunity of identifying what is keeping them stuck, what are the obstacles that are holding them back, and then also tangible ways to achieve the actions that you're trying to get to. So whatever specific goal that you're trying to achieve, and you're finding yourself with some blockers, how do you uncover what the blockers are? How do you call them out for what they are in the instance of what's happening? And then what steps you take actionable goals to get to the next step. And what we've been doing for the last 3 weeks is going through the 3 major parts of the guide to help you get some clarity and understanding as to what you can expect while you're doing the guide. So it's almost like a guide for the guide, essentially, is what the 3-part episodes are. But I thought it would be great to do this because when I first had the idea, it was in the beginning of January. I thought this is too much considering that we're going into a new year and folks are probably starting to think about what goals they want to accomplish for 2026. But when I thought of it, I know that a lot of people typically will start with a New Year's resolution, or they start with what they think they might want to do for the year, whether it's a vacation or buying a house or family event or a big celebration or trying to get a raise, whatever that might be that you have a goal to do. If you haven't really start to create a structure or a map out, a layout of how you're going to achieve that by the end of January, chances are that you may not get to it because it's either left your mind or you found yourself stuck with a barrier or roadblock to get to the next step, or you just quite simply felt like it was not tangible for you. And so I thought, let's do this in February while people who probably are still feeling perhaps disjointed or connected to what they were looking to do, but aren't really sure how to take action. So this is about taking action and taking messy action, but also using your mindset, using a lot of positive psychology and creating awareness so that you do this in the future and it doesn't happen to you again. So before we jump into the part 3 of this course, or not the course. Wow. My brain is in 5 different places because I've been working on a course that I teach for the last couple of weeks. And so in recording all of my modules, the word course and modules is very much so top of mind in my vocabulary. So I apologize for that. Before we jump into this episode and talking about the guide and the last section of the guide, I want to kick us off with my segment of what I'm liking, what I'm reading and watching, and what to look out for. So what I'm liking, I just got into watching The Burbs with Keke Palmer, which I adore Keke Palmer. I've always been a fan of hers. She gives me all of the millennial vibes that I'm always looking for. And I always feel like she's very quick with her one-liners and she's very sass. And to me, that's like my personality in a nutshell as well. If anybody who knows me personally will like agree and attest to like, yeah, I have that about me that like I know when to bring it out and when not to bring it out, and I know my audience. So for me, that's like I'm loving that are all over the place. What I'm listening to and what I'm reading. So my brain has been knee deep in AI. And reason being it's because I know AI is a top skill that really is essential for today's world of work and today's job market and today's where we're going just in general. And for me, AI been something I've played with for years since you can actually have access to it as a regular everyday consumer outside of the world of business. But I've been just honing in my craft and skill and getting a better understanding of how to create really good prompt engineering. So writing really good prompts, being able to share that with people and working on a custom GPT that I want to be able to provide to my customers for career coaching. So, kind of like your own personal career coach, essentially, is what I'm working on. So, I've been working on that. That's kind of where my head has been. Uh, Outside of also this course that I teach, which is for higher education. For those of you who don't know, I do higher education consulting and HR consulting outside of my coaching practice. So the two kind of are really well blended together. But for the most part, when I'm not working in a full time role, I pivot right back into consulting. So this course that I teach, I've been teaching for, gosh, almost 5 years now. We launched it in 2021 and it's been really, really fun. And I get to keep my feet in higher education in a way that isn't 100% committal to working in an institution. And I get to engage with higher ed professionals that can fill my cup and really being able to stay connected to that student environment. What am I listening to? So my Spotify has been a little bit all over the place. I came across an artist who is I think it's a French producer or French DJ that basically creates music using AI, but it's not AI like specific. And it's probably not explaining it well enough. They go by the name of Jupiter X. And I happen to have a song playing maybe 2 weeks ago from my, just dropped edition on Spotify or new dance music. I love EDM and dance music. And this one song called Back Then Is Right Now came into my rotation. And I was like, God, I love the vibe of this song. It's serving like thousands early dance, but also like not so much underground. And it's really like great electronica music. So I went and looked this person up. And when I look at their Spotify, it says Jupiter X is a French DJ and music producer exploring the space where human creativity meets artificial intelligence. He composes, arranges, and produces his music using a hybrid workflow that combines traditional production techniques with AI powered tools. So it says that artificial intelligence is used as a creative assistant for sound design and technique optimization, while artistic direction, musical decisions, compositions, and final mastering remains fully human driven. So it's just a really cool way to like see how artists are using AI to create music. And the music's very like poppy and, like I said, it's electronic pop dance music. That'd be the best way to describe it. And then for what to look out for. So I mentioned a couple of weeks when I had said that I'd be doing 2 episodes a week. Trust me, I am working towards that goal. I think we're going to achieve it for this week. It has been just a lot of prioritization, mapping, designing. I'm trying to get my life together, folks, and trying to keep things structured and organized so that I don't fall to the wayside. But it's also exhausting when you're juggling so many things. And I'm sure that you all feel the same way. So, look, from one human to another, I'm working on delivering what I know I can deliver for you, but I'm also working in the space of being in the season of consistency and time management. So, having said that, what to look out for? I mentioned a couple weeks ago that as we kind of pivot into having 2 podcast episodes a week, one day would be Tuesday, which will drop podcast episodes focused on mindset, positive intelligence, structure, clarity, taking action, all those things that are focused on self-development. And then Thursdays will drop podcast episodes focused on career and what that looks like. So there was, I think it was episode 137, where we were talking and focusing on, or maybe it was 136. We were talking and focusing on AI and the job search process and how that's challenging. And I mentioned a guide that I was creating, a job search networking guide. I've been working on this probably for the last 3 weeks since I think I released that episode. I know I started working it the same day. And after the episode, that kind of got more clarity as to the direction that I wanted to go. So, all that to say is that please be on the lookout that when I come to you on Thursday, that won't be necessarily ready for Thursday, but I will be dropping it very soon. So, it should be available on Coaching for Millennials. When it's live, I will be sure to drop a new episode going over it. But I think it's just going to be a really unique way for folks who are learning to immerse themselves in the networking game and how to use networking to enhance their job search, which I'm always all about. Building your professional brand and building your presence online. And how do you do that in a really strategic way where it's not making you feel overwhelmed or burnt out? So be on the lookout for that. Now, let's jump into the last and final mini series for Unstuck and Focused. So today's particular content and area that we're focusing on is really around the pieces of the guide, which are the last section. And this is specifically around leveraging emotional intelligence and mindset. And what I think is really important around this section, and for me, it's actually my favorite section, is that it really helps you understand the difference between mindset and emotional intelligence, and it combines them together. And what it also does is that it helps you navigate how you can constantly enhance your mindset to give you more clarity, but know where you're actually being challenged. In other podcast episodes, I've talked about how in your mindset, there's a space of where the saboteur can kind of come in, and it sabotages you from actually shifting into a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But this particular guide is really going to help you gain a better understanding of what your mindset is and how you can use it to help you manage any obstacles and challenges that are coming your way. The same is for emotional intelligence, which helps you create more awareness of yourself and how you process events and challenges that you experience in your life. So, jumping right in, let's talk about mindset. So, for those of you who don't know, there's actually two types of mindsets. And in order for us to really build a framework, we need to understand what those mindsets are. So the first mindset is a fixed mindset. And this particular mindset is uh, based on where you believe your abilities are static. So meaning you're only stay thinking in one space. You may not be able to overcome certain things, or you feel like your brain is saying that you can only do this thing, but you can't do something else. So an example would be, let's say, if you're stuck, right? So you're in this place of like saying, I'm bad at networking, or I'm bad at leadership, or always losing momentum. That is called a fixed mindset. You're kind of letting the mindset dictate how you're going to feel and how you're going to react, therefore not allowing you to move in any direction. Now, a growth mindset, right? So a growth mindset is where you believe you can develop thoughts and efforts in learning. So the teachable moment here is that we want to reframe when we feel that we have a negative mindset or a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. So how do we do that? Typically with a growth mindset, it doesn't ignore the struggle. What it does is it takes the struggle that you're actually facing and it allows you to reframe it to enhance it. So it gives you the opportunity to identify what is challenging you and recognizing that you do have the ability and the intelligence to push through and develop an understanding of what you're trying to learn. Now, shifting gears here, and in the guide, there's examples of this and how you can work towards it. And a growth mindset is something that everyone has the ability to live in and do. So take that with how you think. I have a husband who is always thinking of the glass as always half empty, never half full. And for me, it's always a challenge. I'm like, look, I can't always be your husband and I can't always be your coach. And I don't want to be your coach. I just want to be your significant other. So as someone who is always living with someone who has to constantly help them reframe how they're viewing things, I live in that lane every single day. And even more of a reason why this guide was so important. Now, let's shift gears here to emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. And it consists of four main components. So, in emotional intelligence, there's self awareness, which is recognizing your own emotions and their impacts. There is self management, which is controlling your emotions and adapting to changing circumstances. There is social awareness, which is what others are experiencing. So, understanding the emotions of others and showing empathy. And then we have relationship management, which is building and maintaining healthy relationships. So, how you communicate and build trust with others. So, if you don't understand your emotional triggers, you will make mistakes, discomfort for danger. So, this means that when you have discomfort, then you're needing to be in a space of growth. And if you're not feeling good about how your emotions are being managed and how you're challenging them, the important thing is that you can transform them. And so, my thought process here is how do we combine a mindset and emotional intelligence to create transformation. And that's the one thing that the guide, and I'm pointing over here because I have the guide open on my screen. That's the one thing that the guide does with creating actionable steps. So I give you a step by step framework and how you can cultivate a growth mindset and how you can overcome some of the emotions you may be feeling. Why these two are so important, this is my personal observation. In all the years that I've been coaching all the clients that I've had, the thing that is always common is the mindset that they're carrying and the lack of awareness for their emotions. Now, trust me when I tell you that I can be triggered by something that's the stupidest thing. Here's an example. There's a person who loves to park their vehicle in front of the house across the street on the road. Their vehicle is a pretty decent size SUV. Now, it is wintertime where I live. The ice is frozen and so is the snowbank. So we have snowbanks that are like 4 or 5 feet, even 6 feet high. And because those snowbanks protrude into the road, it doesn't give you a lot of room to park very close to the sidewalk. Now, the way our street is, designed, when you pull out of your driveway, you're basically pulling into the other side of the street. You don't have a lot of room to maneuver yourself to pull out in a very clean and organized manner without avoiding hitting somebody. Now, can everyone pull out of the driveway without having an issue? If you're super careful. But it's constantly driving me crazy when this individual who lives 5 houses down, well, maybe 4 houses down, is parked literally in front of my neighbor's across the street's house and in like literally blocking my driveway. Like it's very hard. So I get mad. My emotions are like, I get so, like, I go from 0 to 10. Why? Why am I so triggered by this? So I take a deep breath. I recognize that this is not a me problem, but I'm letting it get to me. Why am I letting this situation trigger me in a way that is causing me to feel a certain way? And so I have to check myself. I let the moment be what it is. I take my deep breath. I inhale and then, release after a couple of seconds. And then I focus on what I have to do. That's a very temporary moment and it should not dictate how I feel. When you are more control and aware of your emotions, how you respond to everything else is going to help you feel much clearer. It's like let it go. Just let it go. There's nothing that is going to help you in your life when you're holding on to that type of shit. So getting back to mindset and emotional intelligence transformation. So by developing a growth mindset and enhancing your emotional intelligence, you can develop a couple of things: improve resiliency, enhance relationships, boost performance, and increase self awareness. Something that a lot of people lack is self awareness. I can't tell you how many times it's what keeps coaches and consultants and businesses and people who do the work that I do in business. But at the same time, when you're trying to teach it, there's a pattern that you have to connect to understanding what the trigger is and what the problem is. And part of it is you need to understand the areas of where you're wanting to improve and understanding the strengths that you're trying to create so then you can have those areas of improvement. As we shift gears here in talking through the objective is really to create actionable steps to cultivate that growth mindset and develop your emotional intelligence. So, how do we do this? What do we need to do? So, a couple of things that we can do to kind of transform this is creating a guide that's kind of like a daily check in for yourself that is providing you with the opportunity to reflect and ultimately this is going to be something you're going to want to do consistently over and over, because once you are having more sense of awareness of it, it's going to allow you to have a massive transformation. So the first thing I want to point out is that to create a growth mindset, you have to be able to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. You have to replace negative self talk with positive affirmation, all about a good positive affirmation. And I'll give you one here in a second. And you have to view failure as a learning experience. Look, nothing that has been created in our world and in life has ever been done successfully the first time. There's always somewhere a failure. I can't tell you how many times I've had to check myself, and this is why we have all these conversations at the door and say, this is just a temporary moment. This is not a dictating who you are as a person. This does not develop how you are and how you operate. So those are these things that are critically important. Now, that's on the growth mindset side of things. From an emotional intelligence perspective, there's four areas to focus in. And already mentioned these, but this is how we take actionable steps. And again, this is all in the guide. So you can access the guide on Coaching for Millennials website. The first area to develop emotional intelligence on the self-awareness things end of things is practice mindfulness to stay present and aware of your emotions. And I mentioned the journal. So here's where the journal piece comes into play. So having daily awareness, a 5-minute journal or an emotional check-in, one which creates a small step in aligning action. And a way of doing this is, you could say, how do I want to phrase this? Well, here's how I would say it. You want to really think about a prompt, and I'll give you a prompt here in a second. You really want to think about where your time is going to be spent in that day as you're trying to align with your goals to create that a check-in for yourself. And I actually require my clients to have a journal. Depending on where they are in their journey, they may start with 3 prompts that I create for them that we work on together that feel comfortable and feel tangible that they have to answer in the morning and at night. And as they grow and evolve, then we do that same type of journaling, but we add in a 5-minute journal check-in. And I like to use the journals from Intelligent Change, I think it's called. Yes, maybe. We'll come back to that in another episode because I find them so useful. And I've actually reached out to them to partner with them because I'm constantly recommending them to a lot of my clients. So journaling is going to be super effective to reflect, to create awareness and understanding, but also start developing consistency in those actions you're trying to take. Self-management. So this is important. We all have stress, right? We all have moments of where we constantly feel like the world is taking over and we are trying to manage 500 things at once. Look, that has been my life the last couple of weeks, and I can't tell you how I've overcome them. I can't wait sometimes until like when Saturday comes because I get to sleep in and turn the alarm off. And I can't wait sometimes until I can just like not have to think so much or be in front of the computer. As much as I love what I do, I spend so much time trying to do the things that I want to help other people with. And when you're trying to create a lot of things at once, it can create overwhelm. But there's other stresses. There's stresses of life. There's stresses of the people around you, your family, your in-laws, whatever that might be. So how do you manage this? Using deep breaths and meditating to manage the stress, setting personal goals to monitor your progress. One of the things that I like to do is when I'm working, I like to put on I forget what they're called, but it's a timed like music where it has breaks. I don't know why I'm losing my head around it. I just had one on before I started recording. But I have really bad ADHD. And so I use it as a way of being able to pause, walk away for 5 minutes and come back. Otherwise, I will stay working and then I'll never get anything else done if I'm staying on task. So it's a great way for me to be able to take my time and looking at the thing that I'm trying to achieve, knowing that, okay, I'm giving myself a 30-minute block or a 45-minute block. And then that helps me see, okay, how important is this task that I'm trying to complete? Is it in the order of operations where it's a priority? Or is it just something that needs to be done, but I can wait until tomorrow? So then I can shift my space and time so that I don't feel as overwhelmed. I'm still trying to think of the name of what that timer thing is called. And I swear to God, I'm going to be thinking about it after I stop recording and I'll remember it. which is how it always happens. Social awareness. So practice active listening to understand other people's perspectives. So important in our world today. And then show empathy by acknowledging others' feelings. These are all things that are really actionable and tangible. And I think humans by design want to do this, but sometimes we have a lot of noise that kind of prevents us from seeing that. And we're so stuck in our own like minds and our worlds that prevents us from actually being able to do that. And relationship management. So build trust through open and honest communication, resolve conflicts by finding mutual beneficial solutions. These are all actionable items and things you can do to help you stay focused and help you stay growing and help you stay grounded in the objective really of really managing your emotional intelligence. So, one quick adage here is stay consistent in your own growing journey and celebrate your successes. I think that for me, when I think of why this guide is so important, why the messaging for what we're talking about here today is really relevant in today's world is that so many people are looking for a space to feel like they belong. So many people are looking for community to be able to connect with. And so many people are struggling in how they can get unstuck with where they're going in their lives and what they're doing. And I don't think that this applies to one particular thing. I think it's a multifaceted and you can apply to anything in your life. So regardless of where you are, who you are in your journey, this particular guide is for you and you can come back to it over and over again. So, what is the prompt that I want to create for you for this 5 minute check in within your journal? And this is particularly focused on the emotional and mindset reflection that we're talking about here. There's also an exercise within the actual guide that's going to help you be reflective of your emotional mindset, your emotional intelligence, and your mindset. But within the framework of the journaling piece, these are the prompts that I want to give to you. So, in your journal, go ahead and write this down. This should take you no more than 5 minutes. What emotions did you experience today? Did you approach any challenges with growth mindset? And what was one small action you can take tomorrow? The idea here is that we're not chasing perfection, we're building awareness. And one of the things that I wanted to mention before I said this that I said I'll share with you kind of like what my affirmation is. I keep this at my desk and it says, it says strive for progress, not for perfection. And I have a bunch of these cards and I always print them out and give them out to people. This was part of a campaign that we did so many years ago when I worked in human resources. And I actually wrote this 1,000 years ago, but I'm going to read it again. So success isn't the final destination. It's taking the courage to take the first step for yourself and your thing. Take action in anything you do, lead with courage, and allow yourself to fully experience what you're seeking to achieve. Be in the moment of the beautiful mess and be proud for taking the steps in the journey that will allow you to experience the things that you want. I wrote this because it really was at the time when I started doing these cards that I felt clarity for it. It felt like this is how I want to coach and this is how I want to encourage people and this is how I want people to connect to the message that I want to deliver to them. And I hope that that particular mantra or affirmation is one that you can connect with and align to. And it's a long one. It's not short. It's not sweet. It is sweet and it's not short, but it is something that when I look at that card and I flip the back of it, it sticks for me and it's something that I resonates with me every single day. So I know other people in their own journey in their life are always looking for something that can help lift them up, and affirmation and emotional intelligence and positive psychology and mindfulness is all the things that help with that. And it's being consistent about it. So how do we wrap this episode up? How do we close it up in the sense of the series? So overall, this series is intended to create an identity and have ownership over your emotions, over your mindset, and over getting clarity and helping you get unstuck, but also getting you focused and identifying ways to overcome obstacles in the goals you're trying to reach. Being unstuck isn't about doing more. It's about knowing yourself more deeply. And when you understand your mindset and your emotions, you stop reacting to your life and you start designing it. And a lot of what I work with in clients, the end game is how do you design a life? You design a life for yourself that brings you joy, right? That's the end game. You want to live a life that's fulfilled and fuels you and makes you feel like you have purpose and it brings you joy. And sometimes life is lifing and we get caught up in everything else that could be a distraction for the world that is necessary, right? But we don't take a step back to breathe and look behind us. So here's how we're going to close this out. Firmly believe that if you haven't done so already, download the guide. Trust me when I tell you that even if you don't use it in this moment, that you'll come back to it and realize, wow, I didn't realize I need that in my life. Complete all of the exercises in it. And if you're looking for an opportunity for deeper clarity and support, feel free to reach out to me. You can connect with me on social media. You can reach out to me on my email at hello@coachingwithjosemiguel.com. Social media is Coaching with Jose Miguel Longo or Coaching for Millennials. And the idea here is that you don't have to overhaul your whole life to move forward. You just have to become more aware and take one aligned step at a time. So without further ado, thank you so much for spending a moment of your day with me. Thank you so much for being a part of this mini series. I hope that it brought you an opportunity to gain some clarity. I hope that the guide serves you in a way that is meaningful and creates impact. And please feel free to reach out with any comments or questions. I would love your feedback on it if there's something you would want to see more about. And until the next episode, so much love and light and peace, friends. Have a great week. Bye. Hey, amazing listener. If today's episode sparks some inspiration, don't keep it to yourself. Share the magic with your friends. And hey, if you're feeling the love, head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show and leave us our review. Your words fuel, fire, and help this community grow. Want to hear more about a specific topic? Have a burning question? Swing by coachingformillennials.com for the latest blogs, newsletter, and all things coaching. We're building a world where dreams become reality, one episode at a time. Thanks for being part of it. Can't wait to catch you into the next episode. Until then, all my love, light and shine.